Where's your boy? Your boy? Or girl, I don't even know. I'm gonna guess boy though. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be neither. Who knows? Hello?
Test.
Tests? Yes. Hello, tests.
Howdy.
That's a interesting name, test. Never heard that before. Okay, what do I call you? Ah, you linked it there. Thank you. I was already looking for it.
I got you.
Thank you. Just to scroll through that before I put it on stream. You never know. That's for the arc. That's for...
Those are just the 3 that I've been working on. I didn't do like every character that I possibly had.
Oh, damn. Like 3 character progressions in one. Okay.
I mean, the only one that I've really been focusing on was the Hoyoung.
Okay. Was
not really the
let's see.
not really the Kana as much, or the Arc really.
So Arc was like your first main, and then Kana is the farmer, and then now you're playing Hoyoung a bit more. Is that like kind of the?
Yeah, basically.
Basically, okay. Oh, I see 3-line attack. I see some 3-line stat stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I got kind of bored of Arc, I guess, and then Hoyoung came out, and then.
How have you been feeling with Hoyoung? I heard that they were pretty like very good burster, but then off bursts very difficult to confirm damage. How have you been dealing with that?
I mean, I don't really notice too much. I managed to go as far as solo Seavel. But it's not too bad.
Wait, what level is it?
I like the class enough. The Hoyoung?
Yeah.
I got it to 225.
Okay, your tank is okay. All right. Okay. Good. Do we have to cover any of the basics? Or do you feel like you got a firm grasp on all of that stuff?
I know pretty much most things. Only thing is, I guess flame calculations, because I know what flames are. I know what flame advantage gear and all that stuff is, but I just don't know how to calculate it on anything.
Sure. Well, you know how, yeah, between flame advantage and flame disadvantage, you'll have like different amounts of lines that you get stats for, right? And then you have different tiers and everything, and there's just a lot of numbers there. So basically, why I have the flame score is so that you can just look at the flame, give it the score, and then you can compare the scores together so you can very clearly see, is this where I want to be at this stage of the game? Is it better than a certain item, or is it worse than another item? Like, what should my priority be here? And what is my ultimate goal to get with this item? Like, that's the whole goal of the flame score. And then the way you go about that is, technically, if you want to go about that, is you would have to get a huge calculator, throw in all of your stat, all of your damage, all of your like all of your percentage attack, all of your attack, all of your gear, just everything, and then it would tell you like if you increase this much, you would gain the same as if you increased this other source of damage this much, and that's why, for example, getting 1% stat is around the same as 10 stat, and therefore that would 1% all stat would translate to 10 stat. Like that's kind of like the goal of the huge calculator. However, the calculator can really only do that for your current situation and not really for what is your future situation going to be. And technically, if you want to optimize something like your flames, every single time you gain some attack or you gain some stat, you would have to slightly change your flame if you want to have the optimal flame, which is not really functional because you'd be just spending billions and billions, right? So what you kind of aim towards is a general level of being upgraded and a general balance of how much stat and attack you will have and percentage stat and percentage attack given average funding. So the stages that I'm looking at is like a late game and an end game. I don't think it's really worth like trying to min-max your flames when you're still in the mid game. I don't think like, you know, that's not really something that should be worth your time. You just, you know, you get like 30, 40 stat, boom, move on. Like, that's pretty much it. So that's why I have, if you check !progression, that's why in there I have like the general goal of like which flame score do you want to aim for in which of these stages in the game.
Right.
And then, of course, the difference between flame advantage, flame disadvantage, as you already mentioned. And then also... hello? Why is this not... there you go. And then also the difference between the weapon and the non-weapons, because the weapons work a little bit differently. What also was added now, with !flames, was a flame store calculator made by Sethyboy in the chat. So hopefully this will be very helpful for you if you have some problems still with calculating the flame score. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, I pulled it up just now.
Okay. So for the weapon, it's more straightforward, right? It's probably a flame advantage weapon. So we can look at your... let me close a lot of these, because these are all like just... event calendar. Oh, so let's say like the condensed power crystal, for example, right? You're on the Hoyoung. You have one main stat, one secondary stat. So your main stat is luck. Secondary, you use weapon attack. Secondary is dex. You have... you could add everything in there that you want. So it's like 15 all. So it's like 15, 15, 15, 15... boom, boom, and then it was like, what, 5? Yeah, 5. Yeah, oh, I clicked reset by exam. Oops. Yeah, so it comes out at 59.38. For the stage for late game, right? Yeah, and if you pick end game, it probably go up. Because for late game, percentage stat scales better. Because, again, the average balance of how much stat and percentage and everything you have would make all stat more valuable in the end game compared to in the late game. So that's kind of how that works. What is behind this is like a bunch of numbers, which if you check !flames are explained there. Boop. And this is basically like the explanation that I just gave you, like what the point is, how you... so the score is supposed to be how much luck would be the same as whatever flame you have on an item. So now that your flame score is 59.38, so if you would just have 60 flat luck, that would like roughly be the exact same as this.
Okay.
Does it all make sense, or is it still...
It's still a little confusing, but how big of a priority is it really right now?
So there's 3 main ways of upgrading, right? There's your potential, there's star forcing, and then there's flames. So
Right.
all 3 of those are accessible through dealing damage. So you want to make sure that you don't overspend in one area, where the efficiency of the same amount of money in a different area could net you bigger gains. So to maintain that balance, that's why I have the !progression. So if you're looking at your total star force, again, that's a pretty wide margin, of course, but if I try to find like a ballpark in the middle, you know, if you're like, your Hoyoung was what, 225?
Mm-hmm.
So if your star force is like just over 200, for example, your main stat is like around 13k, and your flames are like around this level, that's probably around where you want to be. So where's your star force at? Let's like double check. So your star force is at 187, so it's a little bit below, and your main stat is at 10k. What about your are your flames like roughly within an area? Basically, the whole goal of this is to say, can you clear the content that I think is clearable and attackable around your level? So that's more like if you check exclamation mark dailies, this is like the content that like what is good about this content, and then by level is like at which levels do I think it's like useful for you to be doing this content, and is it kind of like realistic for you to be doing this content. So if you are trying to follow this to not miss out on anything important, then you want to be roughly as strong as the progression grid kind of like shows.
Okay.
And then depending on where you're missing the most in the progression grid, you can see what is probably the best area to work on next, so that you can like realize your full potential on your character. Is a general idea.
So.
Because you have a limited resource and time, right? So you can be everywhere at once. You can spend. You can't just min-max everything, or just max out everything. You have to choose where you go first. So this is kind of like to help you prioritize where can your money be best spent next, basically.
Okay.
So, yeah, and because flames, if you look at the like if you really look at it, flames. If you look at this, and you have an item, and then you look through this list, and you're just like, numbers, like, how do I know if the flame is good or not, right? Like this doesn't tell you, like, what is the chance of hitting these tiers, how big are those numbers, how good are all of these numbers, like, there's just too much here. So the flame score kind of like condenses that into one number, one flame score for every item. And then you just check which items are around the same level and can get similar flames. And then you can compare them with each other. This one has 60, this one has 65. That means this one's flame is just better than the other one. Granted that they're both flame advantage and that they're around the same level items. That way you can pick out which item needs to be upgraded next. Or maybe they're both good. Maybe they're both like within the region of the flame score that you want them to be, depending on how far you are in the game. So it's all trying to help you determine whether you should be worried about upgrading it or whether it's fine for now and you can move on to something else instead.
Okay. I guess I sort of get it. This is like
which part is
the fourth
confusing?
time
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen you explain flames and I still don't completely understand. But I still get a little bit more every time you explain it, so I guess I just need to look into it.
Yeah, damage is just a complicated thing, and there's many different sources that give you damage. And because of how the calculations work, different numbers affect your damage differently. And it's always about the balance. So let's say that you had a character that had like 1 million attack. Let's just take like an extreme example to illustrate it, right? You have 1 million weapon attack in your entire account, and you have 5 stat. And then you get to choose, do you want to add 5 attack or do you want to add 5 stat? What would you add? Like intuitively.
Wait, so...
Let's say you have 5 strength and you have 1 million weapon attack. And you get an item that can be upgraded, and you can choose. Either you upgrade it with 5 weapon attack or you upgrade it with 5 strength. What would you do?
I have no idea.
So, it kind of... The exact answer is it would technically depend on how your damage is calculated, but the intuitive idea would be that you would try to stack the strength instead, right? Because if strength and attack both help you gain more damage, but you only have 5 of one, and you already have 1 million of another one, you can add 5 to both. That would mean that when it comes to your strength, that you could double that number in your calculator, whereas for the other one, you only add 5 on a pile of 1 million, so you barely make a difference there.
Okay.
So let's say in the first scenario, before the upgrade, you do like 100 damage. Realistically, if you double one of the sources in the calculator, it would be very... intuitively, at least, well, for me, maybe intuitively is a wrong word here, but calculation-wise, it would be logical to expect that your damage would double up there. Whereas if you do 100 damage with that calculation, but you add 5 attack to where you already have 1 million, your damage would go up by like a percentage of a percentage of a percent, right? It's all of those numbers behind the comma. So that's an extreme example to show that it's all about the balance between the sources make your damage come to life. As those sources are closer together, you know, it's like you have 500 stat and you have 500 attack. Then it's more it more depends on, well, how heavily do these factors weigh in your damage, in your exact damage output. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, there's a whole bunch of calculations that are going on behind the scenes, and to not have to worry about any of those calculations, just follow the progression numbers, right? Try to aim for those numbers. And if you're wondering how good the flame score is of the item, use the flame score calculator to calculate the flame score to see if you're close to where you want to be or if you're still far away from it. And that way you don't have to worry too much about the calculations and the balance between the stats and all of that stuff. And what are the possible outcomes of the flames and how high could it possibly be? Don't worry about that too much, because that's just a whole bunch of numbers. Well, this is also a bunch of numbers, but then for this one, just focus on, so let's say that you're like in late game now, and then you have, does the progression thing make sense? Like, which number do you want to look for? So if you took an example, for example, on the Hoyoung, right? If you took an example like the, well, let's, I don't know if the Dominator Pennant is a good idea. What is a good example here? Oh, let's take your CRA top, for example, right? So your CRA top, and you're around level 225. So if you look at the progression tab, like, how much would you want your flame score to be?
Mm-hmm.
So you're 225. You're pretty close to the early stages of the late game, right? Starts, but at least in this example, starts at 221.
Right.
So you look at flame score, and then you look at boss flame, right? So the number behind the slash, so like the 75. The lower range, boss flame. So like around 75 is probably where you'd want to be at. So then if you need to calculate, you bring out the calculator. But this one is pretty straightforward, right? Because you just have full luck and some decks. But we can put it in the calculator if you want to. So late game, that's where we're at. Main is luck, secondary is decks. So we'll take, doesn't matter what we add in here. So, well, that's not what we want to do. Dex is what, 20? I already forgot the numbers, 20 and 64. Yeah. Whoops. And then 0 here, 64. And then 0 here, of course. So you get to a flame score of 66.5. So that's not too far off, right? That's like 10% off or something. So that's pretty close. So if you do that for all of the for all of your items that are flame advantage, because you know the difference, right, between which ones are flame advantage, which ones are not.
Mm-hmm.
So for the flame advantage ones, you would want to aim for like around 75. For the non-flame advantage, around 30. And then by the time you get to 250, you'd want to have upgraded the ones with 75 roughly to like 95, and the ones at 30 to around 42. The reason that there's a margin here is because, like I said before, you can compare, but mainly compare to items around the same level. Once you go items of a higher level, the numbers go up. You can see that here in the grid, but again, it's just a bunch of numbers. But you can see here that there are different tiers for different levels. And this one goes up to 159, and 160 has its own new tier. And because you can have multiple sources of stat, multiple sources of damage, you will kind of, on average, expect a higher value. Therefore, you will also demand a bigger value, a bigger flame score of higher level items. Because on average, how do I explain this? So basically, let's say that a level 150 is like an average intellect person, and a level 160 is a very smart person. If you give them the same test, you would basically grade, you would expect a higher grade of the smarter person on the same test than of the more average intellect person, right?
Sure.
If the test is the same difficulty and you say that one person is smarter, you would expect them to get a higher score at the same test, right?
Yeah.
So that's basically the same thing with flames. If they work within their average potential, then their average outcome should be higher. So therefore, you demand a better flame of them because there's more value in using a flame because the average outcome of that flame is higher. It's
right.
it's like when you're cubing, right? If you're cubing in epic tier, you're not expecting 9% stat in the same way that you're expecting 9% stat when you're cubing in unique tier, because you know that the percentages go up as the tier goes up. So that's why with the flames as well, when you go high enough, when you go up to level 160 gear, that's why I add the dash here, because you know you're getting to 250, you're having a lot of Absolab stuff. You want to go pretty hard on those because there's a lot of stats to gain there. And then in the end game, you go even harder because then you get arcane gear. That's level 200. It goes even higher. So you want to go really hard on those. But in the beginning, everything is so close together. The levels are so close together that the differences aren't that big. So you can kind of grade them all by the same scale, whether they're flame advantage or not. Does it all kind of make sense now?
Yeah, I get the calculator and the whole progression chart that you made. It makes a lot more sense because I was confused as to what the dashes and the slashes were at first, but after you explained it, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So on average, how many flames does it take to get where you want to be?
Oh, that's so difficult to say. It's so RNG. So for example, for the you know about transposing with the Papulatus mark and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the Papulatus mark, you would aim very high. You basically aim for this number here or even higher, because once you get it and you transpose it, like, it's locked in, right? So you can never really improve it later on. So you're aiming very high comparative to all the other items within the same stage of the game. You're kind of expecting way much. So I know some people who have gotten, so you would aim for 105 to even 115, like super high. I know people who've reached like 120 in 4 flames, and I know someone who had to settle for 106 after spending 100 bill. And I just don't know what number can I give anyone, because it's just so, yeah, the extremes are so far apart. Nexon does this a lot, where the chance per roll is rather low, or the cost per roll is rather low, but then there's a lot of variation in the outcome, so that there's a lot of chance to be very lucky and also a lot of chance to be very unlucky. I don't know if do you have any, I'm guessing not, but do you have like any experience with like statistics and with like distribution and stuff?
Yeah, I get the basic understanding of
stat. So it basically means that there's a huge standard deviation, right? And that the peak in the middle isn't that much higher than the outside. So there is a clear average, but because the standard deviation is so wide and the spread is so wide, it's very difficult to make any kind of prediction, because any kind of prediction you make will have a very low degree of, how do I say it? Low degree of, wait, what's the English word I'm looking for here? Of credibility? Of describability?
Degree of confidence?
Yeah, degree of confidence. That's the one. Yeah, to make like a prediction with a high degree of confidence, you would have to be so vague that it doesn't actually mean anything. I'd say like there's 98% chance that you would need somewhere between 5 and 16,000 flames. It'd be like, wow, thanks. Like that's really helpful, right? Like that doesn't give you any extra information. So there has been more information and more data collecting and more gathering and more people who did they did like trial runs and did like basically let bots just do like hundreds and thousands and millions of cubes, and then they came with like average costs roughly of like how many cubes would you need. But I haven't seen anyone being able to do this for flames yet. I don't know if they just haven't done it yet, or once that's out there, if anyone knows this, yeah, confidence, yeah. If anyone knows about this, please let me know. If somebody, but I think it's too hard to do for flames because there's just so many outcomes, I think. Yeah, but if you could do bot simulations, that would be, I guess that would be roughly that would be pretty helpful, right? Because that could give you more insight of, well, you know, getting these extra 5 stats, is that really, you know, what if this is going to cost me like 50 bill? Like, that's not worth it.
Yeah, so do you usually use the red ones or the rainbow ones?
So I would keep the rainbow, the Eternals, I would keep those specifically for your weapon if you're still working on that, and for those items that you might want to be transposing. So in your Hoyoung's case, I think you have the Dominator pendant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
I
Dominator...
have it on my arc too.
Oh yeah, so yeah, if you eventually want to go like into the further late game and an end game push, and you want to get the 16-star Dominator pendant transposed into a Sweet Water. Probably not yet right now because the set bonus is probably still pretty useful. I don't know how far you are with superior gear. Yeah, you're using the boss set, right? Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any superior stuff on my Hoyoung.
Yeah, that's a pretty new character with the new and improved the Gollux, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I've been farming hard looks for a while. It is a lot more manageable to do it on my Hoyoung, which has less range than my Arc. But, I mean, it's still cancer.
Yeah, he's not as amazing as he once was, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I've just been farming Heartlux coins for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in like a year I'll get all the
yeah. Oh yeah, it's arduous journey.
But I'm not in like any rush to get that anytime soon because I don't really care too much.
Okay, that's good.
At least not right now. I don't.
Yeah,
really
not
care.
right now. Yeah. Are you working on like the Sweetwater accessories at all?
Yeah, I upgraded my boat once.
Okay.
And that's how far I got.
Yep.
I didn't buy anything else with the dineros.
That's good. If you if you buy anything before you get your first boat upgrade, then you kind of delay your upgrade from your boat. It's good to do your first boat upgrade first, and then go for the accessories, and then go for your level 3 boat, and you won't slow down. Because you'll be capped on how many dineros you can get and how quickly you can get the experience. Once you get that first upgrade out of the way, then you're free to like move into the accessories, because it seems like you will pretty soon be able to like go beyond 15 stars. That's basically when I advise people to move into the Sweetwater accessories, is when you're going to move past 15 stars and really get to benefit from those extra weapon attack you get, and you already have item drop rate and luck as well on the current set, so that's nice. And then you can focus on the other one for damage.
Yeah, I was gonna keep all the boss stuff as drop accessories for now, and then
Yeah, that's a good
move on
idea.
to the Sweetwater and Golux stuff. I'll use that as my damage.
Yep. How's it with how's Hoyoung doing with critical rate? How does that go? Oh, we kind of moved on from the flame stuff, but that's all clear now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Yeah, so a critical rate, how's that? Do you gain any while you're mobbing?
I don't think I have any buffs. I think during when the pixel event was still around, I was at 100%, and now it's like 80. But that's like without any links, because I have a Phantom and 2 Explorer archers that I could use, but I don't really want to waste a link on them.
Yeah, critical rate link feels bad because it's like it only gives critical rate, right? It feels a little bit weak.
Yeah.
The way you have to see it though is critical rate allows your critical damage to be more efficient, and critical damage is actually one of the big sources of damage.
Right.
So
I get that part, but
yeah,
it just feels weird.
yeah, no, it feels weird. Yeah, it basically I think the main reason why it feels weird, and I think it's good that it feels weird, is because what if you get that critical rate like on a line in your inner ability instead, and then you can just completely get rid of that link skill and use another one instead. That's if that's like the feeling that you're having instead, that's a pretty good feeling to have, I think, intuitively. And also critical rate is very cheap to build in your Legion, for example, like you've already been doing. So being able to just build more in Legion as your Legion grows, that'll help you be able to move out of needing that in your link skills and moving into different damage ones instead. Though I must say, like, depending on what class you're playing, it's not like a huge detriment to your overall strength and your account and everything to need one critical link or something. If you need 3 or 4, yeah, that's gonna feel like really, or like you need all 3 of them, that's gonna feel really bad, because then it's a lot of slots, like a loss there. But some classes just have more of one, need more of something else. Like everyone has a different balance there. But yeah, like between decent sharp eyes and and your hyper stats and oh wow, that's
Yeah, I'm not too bent over on getting 100% right now.
yeah. It is
But
very useful though. Like it does help you gain a lot of damage. Man, that emblem is painful.
I know I rolled that and I just
You cried.
closed the game.
Oh god. Oh
But I got it on my arc, so I'm not
oh
too
yeah, I saw the
upset.
30. Yeah. How much?
But still, it would have been nice to have what
Yeah,
24 plus 9.
that would be juicy. Yeah, 33. Oh, you got a 12, 12, 9 top as well on your arc. Damn, that is juicy.
Yeah, I put a lot of resources into it,
Okay.
except flames. The flames still suck on all of my stuff, but potentials and stars are so much better on this character.
Yeah, I see some high numbers. So once you get everything figured out, and you kind of one of the things you could do. So here's what I tend to do with like flames, right? I do bosses, I do a few daily bosses, I do a few weekly bosses, and all of the flames I get, I just throw them all in storage before I log out of my character. And then once I have, and you check your storage multiple times a day, multiple characters, and then once you see that the earliest flames you put in start flashing, like they're going to expire within 24 hours, then I basically go to, I do it mentally, but if you in the beginning you need help, you just make a list of all your items, and you do like, okay, these are level 160, these are level 140 and 150 together, these are like level 130 or below. Here are their current flame scores of all the items on the character, and here are the flame scores I want to get to. And then you just look, okay, which one has the furthest way to go? And then you just throw your pile of flames on there. If you make a decent increase, cross it off the list, go to the next one. If you don't make a decent increase and you're near the end and you have like an okay-ish flame, you just hold whatever you have there, and you just start saving up the flames again. And basically you just go through your character one at a time, or your account. You could do it like, oh, I'm just going to focus on the Hoyoung now, or I'm going to make it, go by the very the item that has the very most way to go versus the one that has the all the way up to the item that's almost there already. It's kind of like a different approach if you want to go across multiple characters or one character at a time. I guess I would advise one character at a time. That would make the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have enough sources of damage on the arc already. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to prioritize flames on that just yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like what I have with my hero, where my items have where I have 20-star Abzo, but they don't even have potential, because it's like, well, I mean, I could throw the money on there, but it wouldn't really be necessary right now. The money's better spent other places.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with the range at which that is, so I just want to work on
Yep.
other stuff. But I hardcore grinded my Hoyoung all the way to 225. Like, I think I was still 7k stat when I got to that level, and
Damn. Yeah. I think my Cannoneer is at. I think with all my buffs on, I think my Cannoneer is close to 16k stat, and I think I only just got to 220. Yeah. Little different there.
I mean, I just wanted to get the symbols and just get that out of the way.
Yeah, no, that's a very smart idea. You can start doing the dailies of multiple areas faster, and you can speed up the dailies in the lower areas, so you can just blow through that much faster.
Yeah, I was
Ooh.
also debating whether I should just go all the way to 235, but then
Mm-hmm.
my Hoyoung got to Arcana and it just sucks
Oh no.
grinding there.
Oh, you're probably very restricted in which maps you can train at, huh?
On that character, yeah.
I think you want, like, was it LP1 where you want to train?
I haven't really looked into it.
Okay. Oh, this is your hat is very nice on the Hoyoung. That's a very good flame, right?
I mean, it looks cool.
It looks cool, but what if you throw it into the calculator right now? What does it say? Let's see, where is it? I think that's it.
$111?
Yep, that's what I got too. Check the math. And now if you go to the progression grid,
It's basically endgame for the hat, for the flame score, right?
exactly. It's like it's even like 1 over where you would aim for an endgame hat. So now you know this
Cool.
one, fucking godly. You don't have to touch it for a long, long time.
Alright, I'm ready for Lucid now, I guess.
Potential is also really good, by the way, for epic. This is like typically what people would aim for on unique after like a bunch of cubes.
Yeah, I was gonna tier it up to unique, and then I got that, and I just stopped.
Yeah. No. Yeah. This. So one of the important things is that you learn when you're like spending money and trying to upgrade is what are you eventually aiming for. So if you're upgrading a hat and your goal is say to get 12% stat, and the easiest way to get that is like 2 lines of 6% on unique, right? Or like 9 and then a 3% all stat line or something on unique. But if you hit 12, if you hit 63 in epic, or you have double sixes in epic, then you keep that. Like there's no point in rolling over that, spending more money, and then having to spend even more money after tiering up to try to roll the same potential that you just got. You just save up your money, move on to the next thing, and then when there's a big event, when there's a DMT or something, then you can consider, but then you'll just skip unique and then you go straight up to legendary, because then if you hit 2 lines, then you're at 21. And that's a significant enough upgrade to actually throw money at. So that's more how you want to look item by item to see like, is this one good enough where it is right now? Is it? Then just move on to the next one. Like your shoe, 44 and 5, like 6% luck. That's good until Abzo. Like you don't have to touch any of that until you start working on your Absolab stuff. Like that's a good shoe. Pink Holy Cup has only 5% all stat and none of the other ones. This one is probably on the block to be flamed. If the magic attack was weapon attack, it'd probably be pretty decent. For a bit, but since this has no stat whatsoever, it's probably, if I had to guess between all of your gear, it's probably pretty high on the list. So one thing you could do for Hoyoung is kind of, now that you know like with the flame score and how that all works and how to, well, already knew in general how it worked, but like how to calculate it so you can really measure it and compare it between items. I would advise you to make like a list. And just to make a general list of which items are the furthest away of where you would want them and which ones are already the closest. So you have a better general understanding of which numbers on which items are considered good. And as you see that list come, as you go through that list and as you see more and more items, and whenever you get an item, you look at the flame, you'll get a better and better understanding of like, is this something I would want eventually? Is this actually really bad? Like, yeah, that kind of thing. The only one we haven't talked about yet, though, is the flame for your weapon. Because that one is even more difficult, right? Because that one's with, like, percentages.
Yeah.
That one makes probably even less sense. But that is also in the calculator. So you can look at the bottom here. So the reason it's different is, if you look at the screen right now, so because all weapons have very varying base weapon attack and magic attack, it would be kind of weird to see like to say tier 3 is plus 10 and tier 4 is plus 20 and tier 5 is plus 30, because a claw, for example, can have 90 base attack and then a spear would have like 180, and then for the spear it would be barely any increase, right? Remember, again, because we're looking at the percentage of what we already have, we don't want to like have like reduced efficiency. For the claw it would be insane, and then for the spear it would be shit. So what they go instead is they go percentage of the base stat of your item. So if you have, so here also it's important to know if it's a flame advantage or not. But you have a flame advantage, right? Because it's Fafnir. And then they also added this column here in the bottom, so you can easily know what these percentages translate to. So you don't even have to look to the percentages. So you can use the calculator or you can use this grid instead. So you look at the base attack of your weapon, which is 160. And then you go, ooh, where is it? Here, so 160. And you have a 29, right?
Yeah, I think I got tier 4.
Yeah, so that's a tier 4. So tier 6 is the highest you can roll on a powerful, and then tier 7 is the highest you can roll on an eternal. And tier 6 for attack is typically what you're going to go for. Because remember from before, when we're going for how much flame score are you trying to gain. Oh, you're trying to gain like 20 more, 30 more, you know, for 30 stat equivalent on other items. Well, if you move here from a tier 4 to a tier 6, that's 23 extra attack. And in the flame calculator, you basically equate one stat to about one attack to about 4 stat. So if you're going up 23 attack, you're basically going up almost 100 stat worth. So that's how big that improvement is here. Now, weapon is also a bit different because you can roll the damage percent and boss damage as well. So in that, boss damage is considered more valuable because, again, because of calculations, when you're attacking bosses, whatever your percentage damage is and your percentage boss damage is just gets thrown into one big pile. Like they get added up together. But what happens when you have higher tiers of flames is that damage goes up by 1% per tier, but boss damage goes up 2% per tier. So since in the end they all get thrown into the same pile, even though boss damage only applies when you're bossing, that's why it's higher, you typically don't really need to rely on percentage damage on your weapon flame to be able to one-shot monsters near your level, right? It's more arcane power, your arcane power, your boost nodes, and just all of your gear combined. Like just one line of 5% damage is not really going to make any difference in the overall killing speed. But if you're trying to min-max for bossing and you can trade that 5% damage in for 10% instead, that's way more valuable. So the main things you're looking for is high tier in weapon attack, and then high tier in boss damage if possible. And then if you don't hit the boss damage, but you hit damage and all stat, or maybe even some luck, that could kind of make up for it and make it a little bit better. So that's why I go for the plus here. So it's basically you're looking for high tier in weapon attack or magic attack, and then plus for something higher. So right now you're at tier 4 plus, and you want to move that at least to a tier 5 plus or a tier 6. That will help you get your damage up quite a bit as well. And you won't miss out on too much because it's only 4% damage, 3% all stats, so these aren't crazy yet. And then
do I want to aim for all of the, like, all attack power, damage, all set, and boss damage in one flame?
That'll be very expensive. So I would say that'll depend on how likely do you think it is that you're going to be moving into Abzo with this character anytime soon, right? Because not only do I look at like how much is it going to cost on average, what is the best possible outcome, but also how long are you going to keep an item? Because if you're going to switch it over in like a month, then you don't want to go too crazy. But if it's going to be several months or you have no idea how long you're going to keep it, then yeah, you can go pretty wild with this.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know if you have, because you have like full Abzo on the arc, right? I don't know if you have any, like you don't have any Abzo yet here. Is that something that you think you're going to be able to do soon, or you just?
I have no idea.
No idea. Okay.
I mean, how much stat do I really need to be able to contribute to a party?
So that's also an exclamation mark progression in general. I think once you can solo, that's basically kind of like the graduation from mid game to late game is kind of when you're able to solo all of CRA. And I think at that point, once you be able to solo CRA and you're able to, and you can start practicing Lotus and Damien, and you've seen the boss fight, you probably already have experience with your arc, right? So you can already know the boss mechanics. So you already have an edge there. Once you're able to solo full CRA, you're probably able to already contribute to party Damien and Lotus. I see those as like very, very similar, very close together. So that's, but since you said you power leveled very hard, and we already looked at your stat, and your Star Force is a little bit lower than where you probably want it to be. You might be able to solo these bosses because of your because if you can play Hoyoung properly, and because of your existing skill with arc, so you might be able to do it a little bit faster than other people can. But if you want to make sure that you're contributing like a lot, I'd say that reflaming the weapon will definitely get you like a little bit of an extra boost of damage. Maybe even getting it to legendary, because what do you have now? One line of attack, one line of luck or something, right? Yeah, 1 line of attack, 1 line of luck. I don't know how much money you have running, like working on, but maybe getting to legendary and trying for 2 lines of attack. That would, and then redoing the flame. That would give you a very big boost in damage.
Okay.
I like how like balanced the secondary is. It's not like, it's not great at anything, but it's like doing a little bit of everything. So it's like keeping you balanced
Yeah,
there.
I didn't want to roll into anything that had shitty lines on any
Yeah.
of the lines, I guess. But I'm working on replacing that soon because I killed Princess No.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you just hold on to this until Princess No rolls something super godly, or yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's fine the way it is right now, so I don't have to replace it.
No, I agree. I agree. Okay.
But I mean, it's just it's like pretty min-maxy, isn't it? Getting that secondary.
Yeah. If you look at how much it goes what into 14, 14, and 9, I think, right? 14 decks, something like that.
Not too significant. I don't remember the numbers, but it wasn't too much.
I added the Fantessel recently. Yeah, 14, 14, 9. So if you take that in, if you put that in flame score, it's like 6 stat and 4 extra attack, right? So if you want to, you can just throw that into the flame score calculator. So it's like 6 and 4 and 0. So it's like a 22 flame score. So if you look at how many items you probably have like over 10 items that can be flamed properly. It's like getting 2 flame score gain on all of those items combined. Like on all of them each, 2 extra flame score. That's roughly like the upgrade of going from the one secondary to the other one. So if you're like in the end game and you're like pushing your limits, that's a nice upgrade. But if you're like in the beginning stages of the late game, you're like trying to graduate from mid game to late game, it's something you can slowly be starting working on, but it's definitely not a priority to like be dumping all of your money in, for example. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have the general gist of that. Yeah. So did we do
the weapon? What else do you think I should do?
Let's see. Yeah, so I would definitely say like make a list of your items, whether they're Flame Avenger or not, what their current flame score is, and then what the goal. Cancun Boy, thank you very much for the sub, my dude. What your goal is, if you're looking at the progression tab, like what number, which flame score are you aiming for with everything, and then just see which items are the furthest away, and then distribute flames accordingly. Like I see, for example, your cape. That's like an easy 50 to 60 stat value, like that you could get on the cape. Not even mentioning like the potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pants are like okay, but they can probably get like a better flame. The hat like is insane. Don't touch it at all. The cup, you can probably make some gains there. I think all of your potentials, because in general, like your Star Force is like, it seems like you're on top of that, and your potentials, you're also on top of that. So I think the main readjustment is in flames, and after that, after flames and readjusting your weapon flame, and I would say try to get your weapon to legendary, and roll for 2 lines of attack. After that, I would just focus on making sure you do your dailies. And slowly working up to like practicing Lotus and Damien. I guess the one other thing might be to move into the accessories, right? Into the eye in the face. Sweetwater.
Oh yeah.
And getting those to like 17 star, and then because those are level 160, that's a lot of free stat that you can get right there. Just 2 lines is already 23 stat on both. That's like 46% versus the 18% you have now. That's a lot of stat right there, and a lot of weapon attack for getting like 17 star as well. But once you have that, you should be solidly in a position to be able to be a valuable party in Lotus and Damien for sure.
Okay.
And then yeah, it's just gonna be grinding, unlocking more symbols, and I guess working on your nodes. I'm not a hero when it comes to Hoyoung nodes. We don't even have them in the command at the moment because they're still kind of fresh. But I'm guessing you just boost everything.
Yeah, that's basically what I did. Did I not include it in here?
Hang on, I'm scrolling through it. I saw the ones for Kana. Where's your Legion?
Oh, I guess not.
You took like 5 million screenshots and I find the one that you did. Sorry.
Yeah, that's like the one thing I forgot.
The one thing you forgot. Yeah.
But I can kind of remember what I did. I boosted every skill twice.
Yeah.
So that should cover everything.
So that's is that 6 boost nodes?
Yes.
Damn.
Because wait.
6, 3, 18. If 5 doesn't cut it.
Because there's
5.
I need 6 slots to enhance everything twice. So
Yeah, 6 boost nodes. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the slots for the last 2, but I'll get there eventually.
Yeah. You're just equipping more link skills now. That makes sense. Sorry, skill nodes.
Yeah, I mean, I have the more important skills boosted up to like level 13 or something.
Okay, that's already pretty good. And the boost nodes that you have equipped are like high 10s, low 20s.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like the boost nodes are like around. Wait, are you talking about skill nodes or boost nodes?
Like the trios.
Yeah. So the boost nodes. Yeah. So the boost nodes are like the gray ones, and then skill nodes are the blue ones. Yeah. So your boost nodes are around around level 15 or something, and then the skill nodes are around level 5 or something probably.
All my skill nodes I think are still level 1.
Or yeah, like a low level. If you happen to open one, then you combine it, but you don't make any. Is basically yeah.
Yeah, I've been more focused on the boost.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's good. Yeah, so that's like the levels of the boost nodes and everything that you want to keep track of is also in the progression tab. So yeah, so you're like your general stat, your critical rate that you want to aim for. So like you said, like you don't have to rush for like 100%. It's not super necessary, but you want to keep it like decently high, and you definitely want to aim for 100% at a certain point. Your functional IED, I don't know what that's at right now. The screenshots are from after the skill was gone, right?
Yeah.
You're at
82. The range one should be.
Yeah. You're at 82 IED. Yeah, so this is the part where it comes in, like which link skills do you need and which link skills do you don't need? Do you not need? Do you don't need? Nice. That basically that's when you're looking at progression as well to see like, okay, where am I lacking the most here? Am I lacking a lot of boss damage, or is that one fine? Like you look at these together, that's like 350. Which 350, like if you look at the numbers here, like 350 is solidly in there, right? But your functional IED, especially if you're going to be doing solo CVL, Lotus, Damien, these are... So CVL was dropped to 200% PDR, but Lotus and Damien, basically all the bosses after that have 300% PDR. You know about PDR and calculation with IED and everything, right? Or
I know of it, I don't really know how to calculate it. I just know that there's a goal amount of IED you need to have, and there's like certain amounts of IED and the skills that's not calculated in your stat window, and there's a way to calculate everything together.
Yeah, so if you do !IED, you can use the custom calculator, so you can see how much it is functionally. That's also the number that I use. Whatever number comes out here in your ID calculator, that's the number you want to use and compare with the number here in progression to make sure that you have the right number, because the number in your screen doesn't always apply all of the sources of IED that you might have, because they might only trigger in certain scenarios. But if those scenarios have 100% uptime, then you can count them as if they're always active. Therefore, you have to do your own calculations.
Do you remember when familiars were around? Some people got like 100% IED.
Yeah, so at least they changed that people can get 100%, but you can still get very, very high. So the percentages won't get piled together anymore. Yeah, so for the people who don't know, basically familiars would get lines between like, they would get 15% and then they could get 30, 35, and 40% lines in both boss damage and IED, and there was also some attack going on. And what happened was you were able to equip up to 3 familiars, and they would throw all of the percentage IED and all of the percentage boss damage into one number from all of your familiars, and then give that to you as a buff. So if you had a total of 100% IED between 3 familiars that you have activated, you would have full penetration of defense and armor of bosses, and all your other sources of IED in your character were completely obsolete, and you can roll out of all of them. So that was broken, to say the least. Very, very broken. But so that was reworked. So all of the lines are calculated individually. But like, for example, a friend of mine has one familiar that has a 30% and a 40% line on it. So basically with just that, even though he doesn't have the functional 100% IED, he pretty much has like a functional like 99 point something, regardless of what else he has in his kit. So he can roll out of pretty much everything as well. And that will still be very valuable. But, you know, the accessibility to that would probably be way lower. But yeah, that was that was a little bit of a snafu in their calculations there that they didn't account for, yeah.
Dude, those were good times. I miss my familiars.
We'll never get them back. Well, I mean, we'll get the familiars back, but not in that same capacity. Hopefully in July we'll be able to hug our familiars again. I miss my I miss my spider, dude. Every time having to think about the coupons and then forgetting and then raging. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I started in Reboot after they got rid of familiars, so my baseline's a lot more different than yours.
Oh yeah, right after. Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was on Bear at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like all these crazy familiars with like a bunch of drop rate, muzzle rate, and IED and boss damage. I had like everything sorted out. And then I switched over and lost all of it.
Yeah, you were like switching over. It's like, oh, I'll just do the same here. Wait a minute. Where are they?
Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
But whatever.
You know, it keeps you nimble, dude. Keeps you, you know, you just gotta roll with the punches, you know, take the challenges as they come. I don't know, I'm trying to see a silver lining here, but yeah, it's kind of fucked up. Yeah, so the one thing, IED and defense, the easy way to see it, PDR, physical damage reduction for bosses is basically like armor, right? You need IED. IED is basically penetration. You need penetration to penetrate the boss's armor. Simple way of putting it. Let's say the boss has 100% PDR, has 100% armor. That means that if you have no IED, you deal 0% of your damage. 100% of your damage is being blocked by the armor. Let's say you have 50% IED, you ignore 50% of the 100% armor, only 50% armor is left. That means that you deal 50% of your damage. This is like a final damage multiplier. So you deal half of your normal damage. So that's all easy to understand. Vellum has 200% defense, which means that the armor works twice as hard, even on the same percentages of IED. So that means if you have 50% IED, you attack Vellum, you still deal 0% of your damage because there's still 100% of your damage being blocked. If you have 66.6666% IED and you block a third of it, like let's say you have 80%, better number, you block 80% of the 200% armor. That means that you reduce it by 160%. So there's 40% defense left. That means your damage gets reduced by 40%. That's basically how that works. Now, for the bosses because they can scale up to 300% armor, that means IED gets more and more expensive. More and more important. But because IED just shows up as a random number in your stat, but doesn't really show up in your damage range, a lot of people kind of undervalue how important the IED actually is, because it's basically a final damage penalty that you're lowering by having a higher number. And that's why in the end game, functionally, you want to go to something like a 97, 98% IED line. Again, that's not like a number that everyone everywhere wants to get. Like in KMS, the number is probably way lower because it's because of the reduced efficiency of IED, because of how it's calculated. If you would go too high, with too many different sources, it might go at the cost of other sources like boss damage and attack, where, you know, getting yourself way more penetration might be good. But I don't know if you played like League or something, but if you build like full penetration but you have no power, then sure, all of your damage is getting through, but you have no damage to get through. And, you know, the other way around, you have build a lot of damage but no penetration, then you have a lot of damage but none of it gets through. So you want to build the perfect balance there. So that's where the WSE calculator comes in. And that WSE calculator takes the attack you have, takes all of the damage you have, and takes the IED you have that you got from the calculator, and then tells you this is the ideal configuration of stat, of weapon attack percentage, of boss damage percentage, and of IED percentage that you want on your weapon, your secondary, and your emblem to maximize your damage output, to make sure that your damage percentage is at where you want it. It basically just rolls all of the possible configuration and tells you what the ideal one is.
Okay.
So this is mainly something once you have the Absolab items, for example. Like, let's say you have the Princess No, you have your Absolab, and then you want to throw like all of that into the calculator and be like, where am I at right now, right? You're like closer to level 240, 245, something like that. You're kind of like settled in your sources of damage, your sources of attack and IED. Familiars are maybe back, right? Because familiars are going to be very important for this, right? Just adding like a 30% line on something is going to make a huge difference here. And then you can also see like, okay, let's say I don't have the highest, you know, the most efficient one, but I actually have this one. Like, let's say that you've rolled this one and for some reason. Well, okay, that's a final damage multiplier of 76%, and the best possible is 76.8%. That's very close. Like, I'm not going to spend, you know, hundreds of billions, possibly, to gain that 1% final damage. Like, I'm fine where I'm at, right? So depending on how many options, you can even do the top 100 options, and you can be like, okay, let's say I have the 67th one. That's still pretty close, right? Because the calculator doesn't really make any kind of statement on this is very close to this. The calculator just says this calculation-wise better than this. But like, you know, like this calculator is pretty good here, but this says get 30%, 30 attack on an emblem, 30 attack on a secondary, and 2 lines of boss with prime weapon attack on your weapon. Like, that's a pretty locked situation. If you get this one, for example, you have two options, and you know, you attack on the weapon is more important, and then you can have boss, IED. You know, you kind of had that like spread around. So there's a lot of options that are probably very close, and because you have more outs that are very close together, the average cost of reaching anything that's up there is way lower than if you're purely trying to go for this. Like the exponential extra cost of trying to go for the best of the best is insane. But yeah, so that's something that you want to do later once you have like Absolab weapon, you have your Princess No secondary, familiars are back, all of that stuff.
Right. What does display top mean?
Oh, that's like the top how many results you want. If you just do one, then it'll just display the top number one. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that base stat, that's just for the weapon?
So you want to get like what are the good which lines do you want on your weapon, your secondary, and emblem. So these are how much you already have of percentage attack, of damage, and of IED without the potential of these 3 items. So IED, we already talked about that, right? You get that from the calculator. Base damage, I also touched on that. That's basically, remember when I said like when you're attacking bosses, the boss damage and the regular damage is thrown into one big pile? That's basically how much total damage you have in damage and boss damage combined while you're like doing your burst, because that's the most important situation when you want to optimize your damage, right? When all of your buffs are popped and you're doing like the big boy burst, that's when you want to make sure that you're doing your optimal damage, because it'll be multiplied by the most team buffs as well. So that's that number. But again, of course, without the potential already of your WSE. And then the base percentage attack, this is, for most people, this is going to be like 7. Like it's going to be Echo of Hero, which is 4% attack, and then maybe your Boss Soul, which gives you 3% attack. For most people, it's going to be like 7. I think Adele has a 10% attack, I think. I think maybe Dawn Warriors have some. There's a few classes that have some percentage attack, but it's a very low amount. So it's not like with the flames with the percentage attack of your base weapon or something. I think you were asking about that, right? This is purely like percentage attack or percentage magic attack sources that you might have in your kit or on your character that are not accounted for by your potential of your weapon or your secondary and your emblem. So for most people, it's just soul buff and hero, but a few classes have some skills that will give them some extra.
Okay. I'll work on that, I guess.
Yeah, so the list of the flame score, just going through your items and just doing the calculations over and over. If it helps you, you can look at this as well. This is where the numbers are coming from. So this is kind of like the back end to what this is calculating. So these numbers here, so like main stat counts for 1, secondary stat counts for 8 to 1, so like 8 dex would be 1 luck for you. Attack counts for 4, and all stat counts for 8.5. So that's how the flame score comes to be. And these numbers are not like set in stone and always 100% correct, but this is like a general, you know, based on the distribution within stages of the game of how much of all the stats you have. This is generally how they correlate with each other.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you get a better feeling for that, you'll be able to make the list of this one needs a lot of work, this one needs almost no work, this one definitely is good enough, this one is shit, and then you can start throwing your flames on. Because in general, your Star Force and your potential is very good, and your flames is definitely where you can get the most free stat right now. I wouldn't be surprised if you could gain like 300 luck or something just by reflaming a few things.
I got a lot of math to do.
Yeah. But yeah, as you do more of them, you'll kind of like get an eye for it. You'll be like, oh, this one looks really good, or this one just looks really shit. Yeah, and then it'll become more intuitive for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure once I do it a few times, I'll get the hang of it.
Exactly.
Guess I don't have anything else to do while I wait for the game to come back up, so...
True, yeah, you could do
I'll
that
do
now, yeah. Yeah, and if you have some that you're like wondering about, then you can always you can ask in the chat. Man, imagine... Oh no, wait, this is a Dragon Tail Mage Glove. Wow, that's an unfortunate flame.
Dude, I'm the strongest Kana with that
so much strength, yeah. But yeah, even like without any stat, this is good, right? Like 6 attack, 5 all stat, so like 8.5 here, so that's 42.5. 4 here, 24, 24 and 42.5 is 66.5. So that's very decent for a level 140 item. If this was also your stat, you'd be like at 115, right? This would be even more than your hat. Like that would be crazy. So that's kind of like,
wish.
Yeah. Therefore, like in the beginning, if you just hit 6% all stat on a low level item with literally nothing else, that's like a keep. That's like an easy. It's just an easy keep.
Yeah.
So the Kana is a farmer at Arcana. Are you having?
No, this is
Oh no, wait, this is way lower.
205. Right now?
Yeah, 205. Yeah. I looked through your stat, so I was immediately like, I don't think this is Arcana at 5,000 stat. That would be a little bit problematic.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you got to 20 minutes.
I've neglected the Kanas more than my other characters just because I was so used to Bye Station that I just recently got it to 5th job. And now I have to do the long grind all the way to Arcana.
Yeah. You're hanging out in the Blazing Urdas for now, I guess?
I just do dailies and then I just stop because I hate this fucking class.
Okay. Yeah, do it. Like, if you don't like it, then don't push yourself. you gotta resent yourself.
It's not a bad class. I mean, I'm not gonna regret putting effort and money into it just because it's already a good class even without the keychain. It's like not a waste, I guess, but at the same time I don't want to put so much effort into it because the class fucking sucks for me.
Yeah, everyone just likes different things. To a certain extent, just being very strong is very likable to the most people. But for some people, it's just not enough. Like if there's just something in you that's like, I don't like this, I don't want to be here right now, I don't want to do this, then yeah, you just have to listen to that and just not do it for too long. You can get over it for like a little bit, but you don't want to force yourself, because you're just going to take your enjoyment away. And then when you take your enjoyment away, then your overall efficiency and your mood is just going to suffer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as brainless as it used to be.
Yeah, there was some brainlessness to it before. Especially if you're used to bye-bye stage. That's
Those
like
are
a
the
level
days,
below brainless. I don't even know. I don't even know what that.
Dude, I farmed before I even had a Kana. I farmed on a different class altogether because of Kishin glitch. Do you remember that?
Oh, when people would just give the Kishin spawn to the map, so you didn't even need it.
Yeah, and there was no level penalty, so I just farmed wherever I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, right after the maintenances, Kanas would just go through maps and just Kishin everything and just move along, Kishin, move along. Yeah, that was a... Wow, compare that to 30% duration with 60-minute cooldown. Holy shit, we've got... Damn, we've gotten a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care because I don't care too much about this class.
Yeah. No, I think you're... Yeah, just play it as much as you enjoy it. Don't as long as the Hoyoung still feels right, and you know, once you can get a map, of course.
Dude, I don't even want to play Hoyoung anymore after grinding it all the way to 225.
Yeah, maybe just like logging in and doing dailies and then doing something else.
Yeah, I think just grinding for that long burnt me out.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with that burnout, yeah. Because it can be very good to have a short-term, mid-term goal to be like, okay, I want to reach this now and then I can chill. But if you feel like you're reaching your limits, just for your overall enjoyment, you don't want to like dread having to log into Maple. You'd be like, well, I guess I'm logging in because I'm playing, but it's like, oh god, like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. Like you gotta try to like keep it fun. But that's difficult to advise on, because it's whatever is fun is very different for more people. Like for me, just derping around and helping people with questions, that's fun for me. So whatever I'm doing in the background in Maple, it's not really even that important to me. If I can help like people with questions in the chat, like that's where I get a lot of my value.
Yeah, I mean, I used to get worked up over how much stuff I needed to get done. Like back when 22 star meta came out, and I was so overwhelmed by how much it costed that I like just did it a few times and I just quit because I boomed so many equipment. I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, the whole I've been trying to do that general level of awareness as well. Like if you play the game a certain amount of just a certain amount of time, and you have you got to set some goals that are kind of realistic to be able to achieve in that time. And it's very possible that your ultimate goal is equipment that is like 18 or 19 stars, and that's just like kind of what makes sense for you. And other people might look at 18 or 19 star equipment weird and be like, why is it not 22? But like 22 just costs a lot of money, and you need a lot of backups. Like this is very, very high cost, right? There's an exponential curve to how much extra it costs and how much extra you get from it. If you do half the investment of a 22 star, then you have 21 star. You do a half of that, and then you have like a 19 star. I think you do half of that, and you have like 15 star. Like there's a huge increase with how much extra it costs just to go for that extra star. And it kind of like it tries to bait you in, right? Because like now it's done and you can like close the chapter, but you're never really done with Maple because new stuff will always come out and you're always gonna have to upgrade. That's one of the main reasons that I kind of got away from non-reboot, because there would always be a new scroll, there would always be like a new type of, it would be bonus potential, and then there'll be like a new tier of potential, and every single time you have to completely redo all of your items, and there's so many ways of upgrading, and I was like, ugh, just give me Reboot, I'll just cube it, Star Force it, and then like if I know already that if I'm going to move on, that I'm moving on, so I can like gauge like, okay, do I want to make this investment or not? I know how much longer I'm going to need this. Either I'm, moving on in like a week, or I'm going to keep this for another year, then fuck it, I'll go all the way. Like, you have way better of, I don't know, feel like you can plan for the long term way better in Reboot than you can in non-Reboot.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that more. Also, like the value of your items, right, isn't like very fickle, and it could be like, oh, botters are getting banned. Now my items are suddenly only worth like 5% of what they were a month ago. Like holy
Yeah,
shit, like that's so scary. You can never have that on Reboot. Like that's just not gonna happen. It's only gonna happen if there's like a major patch rework, and if that happens for everyone equally. So that just feels safer to me. So that's like the main reason why I'm rebooting. But yeah.
so speaking of Star Force,
Mm-hmm.
so I have enough funds to get all my equips on my Hoyoung to 17. So in what order do you usually try to get it to higher stars? Like in terms of what equipment do you try to aim for higher first?
Typically a combination of the level of the equipment and how many backups you have. So if there's something with a lot of backups, then typically I don't safeguard. But I do most of my star forcing. I would say usually I get things at like 12 stars and then like 11 or 12, and then I just wait for whatever event comes along, and then I just take maximum advantage of the event. So let's say a 30% comes along, then I try to get to 15. If a 5, 10, 15 comes along, then I try to get to 17.
You never safeguard?
So I would safeguard if there's low backups. So for example, like on the kind of treasure ring, for example, or like the fucking Gollux rings, right? I would definitely always safeguard those because there's a very limited amount. But the way I play the game is I don't make a lot of money, but what I do is play a lot and do like a lot of dailies, so I can build up a huge bank of backups. So for CRA, for example, I've never safeguarded a CRA in my life. Because either I just keep it at 12 stars, or I wait till I have a bunch of backups and then try to push to 17 without safeguarding. Because that way I get a lot of value from my star forcing out of the backups. You know, those backups are built up. You can spend your time either like doing those dailies, or you can spend your time farming the money. But either way, you're creating value with your time, either by having backups and not needing to safeguard, or by not having backups but being able to safeguard because you have the money to. These are like two different ways of spending your money, but these are like also hidden ways in how bossing has more value than just the boss crystal, right? You can get soul shards, you can get flames, you can get cubes, but you also get backups, which allow you to not have to safeguard and save a bunch of money. I don't know if you've looked at the star forcing calculator. Oh wait, I don't know. Calculator.
Oh yeah, I use that all the time.
Yeah, so yeah, it looks kind of fucking scuffed now, but so this part, yeah. So yeah, just checking if you need to safeguard or not. Like I'm pretty sure if you go from, is it level 160 item from 0 to 22, I think with 30% off, no safeguards, star catching, it's like 19 bill, and if you do 5, 10, 15, I think it's about the same. Yeah, so see, 30% off is actually cheaper. But if you look at the amount of booms, you know, you go from an average of 5.1 booms to an average of 8.5. Like, so if you have a bunch of backups and there's a 30% off, well, fuck it, you just do it during a 30% off, right? So this way you just create a little bit more options for yourself. But there is an opportunity cost to just doing all the bosses instead of just farming the money. Because I'm not claiming like I'm doing it the most efficiently. Actually, I'm probably not. That's probably more accurate. But I'm doing it in a way that's most fun for me. And because I'm having fun, I think that's more efficient than doing what is not fun. Because I can maintain this much longer. I can put in the time, you know, because I enjoy it, rather than treating it like a job and like, oh, I have to farm for 4 hours now. Because like, as sooner or later you like burn yourself out on that, and you just can't maintain that energy.
Did you safeguard your Meister ring?
No. The first ones I star forced during a no boom room, so I didn't have to, and the second ones I didn't, because I have right now even I have like 60 primals left. I just mass made them, and because every single day, since I started playing, every single big rock, every single big flower, I always harvest, and I've been doing normal arc for a while, you know, with our dear spider familiar, and with drop rate, I was doing at a certain point, I was doing normal arc 6 times a day, every single day. So that bank just keeps rolling up, and because that bank keeps rolling up, I don't have to safeguard those fuckers. Fuck that. All of that extra money, no, I already made that money. I made that money in the drops that I have in my storage, so I'm not going to spend that extra money. And also, I got pretty lucky. I still have like 3 extra Meister rings in my arc. But for most people, I would definitely advise to safeguard them, of course. Most people don't have the time to do it on 6 characters at once. People don't have the drop rate anymore. If you have like only 3 or 4 Eternals, or Primals, then you definitely want to safeguard, right? Because at that point, you want to look at the average chance of booming. They're like, what is it, level 140? You're going from 0 to, let's say that you're trying to get to, I don't know, let's say that you're trying to get to like 21 or something. During a 5, 10, 15 with safeguard, let's say there's no event. Like the average chance to boom is like 1.2. If you're trying to get 2 to 21 and you have 3, that's already not happening. You probably need 4 of it, or at least 5. And you know, we talked about like the standard deviation and the spread before. Like the spread is still pretty wide, so there's a chance that you don't blow any up. There's also a chance you blow up like 5 or 6. You know, in that later situation, you're just kind of screwed. But if you compare that with not safeguarding, the average boom like more than doubles. So like that's a risk that not everyone can take. So I wouldn't say to everyone to take that risk.
It just sucks having to get to Meister accessory crafting. That shit takes forever.
Yeah, it takes a while, yeah.
And then you lose it if you don't.
Yeah, then you gotta
something
upkeep.
that's fucking stupid.
Well, the way I said it, you know, let's say that you're like a master smith, you know, but let's say you don't make anything for a long time, you're gonna lose your edge, dude. I mean, you'll still become a pretty good smith, but you're not gonna be a master anymore, right? You gotta do something to keep owning your skills. I think, I don't know. I used to be pretty good at sports, but like I haven't played in a while. I'd probably be shit now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just some bullshittery. But yeah, I feel your pain on that for sure.
It's like the only reason that's keeping me back from trying to get to 22 stars on my rings, just because I don't want to end up blowing all my rings and then not being able to craft anymore and then losing my Meister or having to maintain it. It's just too much for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. I guess, yeah, you gotta find like a number that you could be happy with that is also realistic. Like getting to 22-star ring, if you have a bunch of money, you have a bunch of primals, and you know that eventually you're going to be aiming for 21, 22, everything anyway, then that's like a reasonable goal. But if you know that you're probably going to get, you know, if everything is like 18 or 19 stars, that is way more stat than if you get 2 or like 3 items that are 22 and everything else is 17, right? Like the overall distribution of your money will be way more efficient. Technically, the most efficient way of distributing your money is by going like 1 star at a time on everything, right? Getting everything to 18, getting everything to 19, getting everything to 20, and so on and so forth. The one downside there is, and the one big exception is, once you get something to 22 and it's like quote unquote done, and you can cross it off your list, then you can stop doing the dailies for it, right? Like let's say, for example, you go for the Sweetwater accessories first, you go for the eye and you go for the tattoo and the monocle, and maybe even for the earring or the pendant, and you get those to 22. Well, now you can cross CPQ and solo voyages off your daily list, and you can take that time to make money instead, right? As long as you're still doing one at a time, you still have to keep making backups to account for the fact that you might get unlucky and it might blow up. So there's like, you know, there's pros and cons there as well.
Yeah, that'd be a fucking dream to never have to do the stupid Conversi voyages ever again.
Until you start playing a different character and have to start all over.
Yeah. But now I have to work on getting my pendant on my arc, because I have the tattoo and monocle on it, but I don't have the 3rd accessory.
I see. Well, there's no set bonus there anyway, so until you have a good flame dominator, there's no huge loss. I see you had both of them at 15, right? So you're gonna get them to 16 and then get a good flame? That's the goal?
On what, the tattoo and monocle?
No, on the dominator pendant.
Oh, yeah, I have it all on 15 stars. I just need to wait for 5, 10, 15.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not like I have a good flame on them anyways. There's no point in star forcing right now.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing that you have that patience to just wait, because there's a lot of people get impatient there, and then some people actually like blow up their stuff from 15 to 16 because they're like, oh, it's such a small chance to boom anything. Yeah, there's a small chance, but a chance. Like if you're okay with it booming, then take the risk. If you're not okay, then don't take the risk. It's really just is that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be really impatient, like, back in the day. There was no boom room. I would safeguard literally everything and get it to 22 stars even without an event. I was pretty reckless with my money back in the day.
Well, if that recklessness or whatever you call it, if that is supported by how you play the game and that's enjoyable to you, then I don't think that's necessarily bad. But yeah, if it ends up putting a big tax on you on how much you have to play to be able to maintain that, and that ends up like draining your happiness, then yeah, you want to change some of that. Because, this is a long-term commitment, so the more you fuck yourself over in the short term and the mid-term, the more you're going to end up resenting it in the long term.
Yeah, so, when you Star Force and your item gets destroyed, does it keep the potential in the flames?
So all of your bonus stats is always kept into the trace, as long as it's not like a superior item. So it's not Tyrants or whatever. Tyrants goes all the way back down to 0 stars, but everything else goes down to 12 stars, and then also Tyrants like keeps the potential and the flame and everything. That's all saved in the trace, yeah. Even like for a weapon, even the soul, for example, is all saved in the trace.
Okay, so because I have I think a reinforced pendant that I blew up, but it's like legendary potential with 20% drop rate. So if I were to put that in another pendant,
yeah, you get any other. Yeah. You have any other reinforced pendant, it'll come out 12 stars with the same potential, the same flame that it had before. Yeah.
Okay.
And it also works if you after you transpose. If you transpose at 16, you get those higher bonus stats. Like those extra bonus stats are also kept even if it gets downgraded to 12 after you blow it up and you replace it onto a different Sweetwater accessory. It'll still keep those extra bonus stats of after being transposed, and the flame stats. The boss flame stats that you transpose onto a non-boss item. It'll also just keep all of those.
Mm-hmm. So for transposing, what gets transferred over? Does it lose a star like a star forcing?
Yeah, lose 1 star. The two main ways that it's different is that the for potential with transfer hammer, it keeps your lines, but it reduces the tier to epic. And what transposing does is it keeps your tier, but it rolls your lines. So it gives you like a random, like a Meister cube used on it, basically.
So it'd be worth cubing a Dominator pendant up to legendary to transpose it then?
Well, you would have to do it either way. So I would say if there's a DMT before you get to that point, then yes, because then you could tier it up cheaper. If there's not a DMT before that, then it doesn't really matter because you're going to have to tier it up eventually. Actually, it might even be better not to, because then there might be a DMT closer to or after you've transposed it, right? So it will totally depend on if there's an event that would make it financially better or not.
Okay, so if I have a good potential on a tattoo, or tattoo, and then I get a pat mark that has shitty lines, would that line get transferred over?
So the Papulatus mark is a eye, so that would transfer into the monocle. Yeah, that would transfer into monocle. So whatever you had on, if you're transposing, whatever you had before on the monocle, all gets replaced, 100%. The Star Force goes to whatever the Pap mark has -1. The flame gets written over by whatever the Papulatus mark has. The potential lines will be the tier of whatever the Papulatus mark has, and the lines within the tier will get randomly rerolled. So nothing gets saved on whatever the thing already had. So if you have a decent monocle and you have a really good Papulatus mark that you want to transpose, the best thing is to do it just to a clean monocle.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so
Okay,
that's the other main difference with transfer hammering is for transferring hammer the flame doesn't get copied over, but with transposing it gets copied over. That's why we transpose. One of the main reasons why we transpose, because then that way you can get a flame advantage flame from Papulatus mark, for example, into a non-flame advantage item like a monocle, and you can end up with a flame that you would never be able to roll in the game. Because it's so good, but also because once you've rolled it, you can never re-roll it, because any kind of re-roll would revert it back down to a non-flame advantage roll, and you just completely fuck it up. So because you can never re-roll it afterwards, that's why we set the very high standard of like 105 to 115 flame score, right? So because once you have it locked in, like it's there forever. So you want to go really high and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So no one goes for the Sweetwater earring anymore, right? They go to the pendant now.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's mainly because the earrings now drop from Helix instead of the pendants. So it's way harder to get like 2 high Star Force pendants up when they don't drop anymore. And then the other thing is that there might be the change with the double items in the set, although I don't think it should happen. Well, it shouldn't happen. I don't think it will, but it might. So if that goes through and you are no longer able to wear 2 spear pendants at the time, but you've like heavily invested in it, that would really suck that you would have to like roll that over. So it's like a safer way for sure to go for the pendant now.
Yeah. Okay. So for Legion, is the goal 6 or 8K?
So if you look at progression, I have that there in there as well. I would say 6K is like a solid late game Legion, and if you're trying to press like past 250 and be or like optimize at 250, then an 8K Legion I think would be advisable. So 6K is the full grid, and then what you're doing with 8K is you're making all the characters that you have in. You're slightly increasing the characters you have in there. But the big increase is when you go from 7.5 to 8, then you, instead of getting 1 extra character, you get 5 extra characters. And on top of that, those characters are going to be level 200. So all of those are going to be 4 grids. So that's like 20 extra. That's like half of a full grid extra that you can cover. It's just like,
Okay.
it's crazy value. And then past 8K, it's like 500 levels on characters all over level 200 to get 1 extra character in there. Like, that shit is not worth. So...
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't ever intending on going past 8K.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely good value from 6 to 8, but I do realize that for most people that might be a bit too much. 6 is definitely acceptable because you have access to the full grid and everything, and you can put a lot of characters in there already. But the bump from 7.5 to 8 is very good.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess now that I don't really want to grind on any of my high-level characters, I just want to focus on Legion more than anything.
Yeah,
And
that makes
dailies,
sense.
of course.
Yeah, dailies and Legion. No, it's good that you have like a phase where you're like not really grinding at the moment, but you still focus on Legion and dailies. Like your character will just get stronger so much without even leveling. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've noticed that way back when I started Legion, it was so weak, and now it's so much easier to kill mobs.
Did you see my Did you see my Ice Lightning? My level, what was it? Level 2 Ice Lightning with the basic attack hitting like 8K crit.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you talk about it, but I didn't see it.
You can do some nasty shit.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to figure out what I could do with the next birding too. Because I have most of my important links and stuff at 140. But I also would rather... Is it better for me to terror burn something that's 140 and that's also really important to get to 210? Or focus on getting like...
Like a new character to 200?
Yeah, like a because I wanted to make another class that I wanted to progress with.
Well, there's definitely a few. There's definitely a bunch of classes that get a lot of value out of reaching 5th job, and they just kind of struggle to get to 5th job, and that would be nice mains. I'm thinking about things like Nightwalker, Hero, Cannoneer, stuff like that. Are there any classes that you were thinking of, like, I guess like side maining or whatever people call it these days?
I was gonna do a Dawn Warrior.
I would say Dawn Warrior is so solid and so strong by itself that it's almost a waste of burn, I would say. I would actually say it's a waste of burn. Dawn Warrior is like a solid class by itself that has no problems like progressing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was either that or get a Mercedes to 210.
Yeah. No, I would go for the Mercedes then, and that will be like a solid foundation to be able to get your 6k Legion and beyond as well.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think Mercedes really pops off once you get to 5th job. I think it's actually a really fun 5th job, but it's a struggle to get there.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to playing a Mercedes again.
Yeah.
I got it to 140 and I was like, I don't ever want to touch this person again.
Yeah, no. I think there is some bias though, because I think most people do the Mercedes very like as one of their first. So as a result, you'll be at your weakest, right? Because you don't have any Lynx and Legion. So you do get kind of like a biased look into how weak a Mercedes can possibly be. So I do try to take that into account. But yeah, most people just don't enjoy the comboing and the twirling and the hopping around, and it's just, for most people, it just doesn't like tickle their pickle quite that good, you know.
I mean, it was cool when it first came out.
When it first came out, they were actually OP, right? Because of the double line Hurricane, which is basically just broken.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still a broken class, but you need to get very far into the game. But like endgame, I think they're I would say they're definitely the strongest archers. Like the most versatile with mobbing, bossing, and supportive capability with bossing debuff as well. The only downside is that they don't have sharp eyes, I guess, but they have a lot of crit rate in their own kit, but they don't share sharp eyes with the team, I guess. But yeah, they debuff the boss. They have good burst. They have good mobbing. Well.
Yeah.
Right, dude. I have no time. How long we've already been chatting?
I don't even know what we were talking about.
A
Other than like flames. That's like all I can remember from our conversation.
lot of flames. Well, like
Yeah.
general upgrade, but yeah, having like a good base understanding of how impactful your flames can be can also help you put into perspective how much money you're going to be spending on cubing and star forcing. But yeah, it's difficult for me to say like a number, be like, oh, like 10 billion flames means everything's perfect or something. Like I can't say that, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel pretty stuck right now with my Hoyoung. Just because the gap between soloing Seavel and Lotus and Damien is pretty new. Or like, newish. Because I haven't done it in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know what to do at this point. Or like to close the gap, I guess.
Wait, close the gap between your Hoyoung and your arc, or?
Yeah, and getting Abso stuff.
Yeah, well, like I said, like work on the flames, redo your weapon, and after that it's going to be like the Iron Face accessories, getting good potential on those, and then it's like slowly phasing out. Hopefully you can start working at like getting into some reinforced accessories, then you can start phasing out whatever you have there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the set bonus will come into play, and then you'll be moving in from like party Lotus and Damien into soloing Lotus and Damien basically. And at that point you'll already be working on getting some Abso pieces, getting those up to 17, getting those up to 2 or 3 lines of potential. You can get really high flames on those, and at that point you'll be like soloing Lotus and Damien for sure, and being able to enter like normal Lucid parties, and then you'll be getting way closer to your arc. All the while you're doing that, building arcane power, leveling up your nodes, opening more node slots, and hopefully familiars coming back, giving you a huge boost in IED and boss damage, and then you do that calculator thing we talked about to like optimize your WSE. You take in your Princess No, you take in your Absolab weapon, and then you try to optimize your lines basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the general line.
I guess for my Hoyoung, it's getting to party with Lotus and Damien, and for my arc, it'd be soloing them. Then.
Yeah. Where's your arc at? What level is your arc at? Like 240 or something?
229.
Oh, 229. Oh, you were at like the same level. Oh yeah, but some of your equip like some of your equips are like crazy. Yeah, I think you probably should be able to be at the point. Well, should be. That sounds really strong, but Arc's kit is so solid. Like you have a lot of IED and a lot of boss damage, like all built into the kit, and decent crit rate as well. That the class lends itself way more easily to like soloing bosses much faster. So Lotus, yes, definitely, because also you have the power knockback resistance, right, in your hyperstat. The Damien might be a little bit trickier because Abyssal Recall, especially in phase 2, that damage is more difficult to confirm because of the blue balls floating over your body, and then you only deal 10% of your damage, so that takes a lot of your possible burst away, sadly. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. I found that very difficult with my arc to get into being able to do hard Damien solo. I've noticed that you need a lot of damage as an arc to be able to do that. Like your burst is very solid, but off burst is pretty meh, and Abyssal Recall can be counted on to do like full damage, sadly.
Yeah.
But you've
How would
got
you
some,
compare the arc and the Hoyoung with like the burst between the two?
I think Hoyoung, from what I understand, I haven't played Hoyoung like that far, but from what I understand, Hoyoung's burst has way less setup and packs like more of a punch. However, Arc has good as good party buffs as well with our hyperstat. Like you give the whole team 20% IED, 30% boss damage, 20 weapon magic attack, 1 rank of attack speed, and 50% knockback resistance for 1 minute every 2 minutes. And Hoyoung gives a team nothing. So that's like a huge difference there. But I think Hoyoung's burst is easier to set up and higher, but I think their off burst is like either the same as Arc or like a little bit worse, and they don't have the party buffs to kind of compensate for that. But in a lot of ways, I would say that they do fulfill like roughly a similar role, but like lacking the party buff is a huge thing.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else I should work on other than flames?
Yeah, so your weapon, right? The weapon flames, and then definitely the potential getting that up to legendary. I think it's probably a good idea to like shift the balance into your legion and building up your legion, and then min-maxing that more. That will also get your link skills up. One thing that will probably be something that you want to be working on is like buying items from the event. There's going to be a lot of nodes, a lot of symbols. And also once familiars come back, that might be like the best upgrade for you is to actually like work on upgrading like familiars, but that'll definitely depend on what the drop rate is going to be and all that stuff. So
yeah.
So yeah, it seems kind of like we talked for like 2 hours that it's like work on your flames, but I think we laid a lot of like groundwork and a lot of foundation on how to go about everything, and I think a lot more things that might be or that might have been confusing after will now already start making way more sense because of the chat that we had, because you'll be able to like recall what we just talked about, and I'll put it on YouTube as well so you can like listen back to it later and be like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, we did talk about that here and there. And then you'll be able to like pick those things back up.
All right.
Are you a little bit more confident?
I just have a lot of math to do that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But I guess this kind of reaffirms the direction that I was intending on going on anyways, because I knew I had to work on all the stuff we talked about, but I just wasn't, I guess, confident.
It's good to have it confirmed by someone that you at least
Like someone who knows everything about the game, yeah.
someone you believe that at least knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, if there's
Alright,
any
I'll
like
look
follow up or anything based on this, you can always like message me on Discord like for like a specific advice, or always just during the chat if I have time. Of course, I'll always
Yeah.
get back to you on things.
Actually,
Yeah.
one question. So, my Hoyoung has like a ridiculous amount of summons.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be worth for me to get a Corsair link or Legion?
Yeah, I heard that works quite well. Buff duration and Corsair link, yeah, from what I heard.
Okay. That's another class I didn't want to touch.
Yeah. Well, there's if you get your Terra Burn to 200, there's another Mega Burn coupon in there, right?
Oh yeah.
So that'll be easy 151 at least, and then you can wait for a while, and then once you muster up the courage, drag it from 151 to 200.
Yeah, that's gonna happen in like 4 years.
Yeah, that's gonna take a bit, but hey, better late than never, right?
Yeah. I feel like I've been playing this game forever and I'm still stuck on where I was for the longest time.
Well, you kind of like started over, right? So that's only normal, but I'm pretty sure that you reached this point way faster than you did last time, didn't you?
Well, I guess the amount of time I've been playing this game was when Reboot first came out.
Mhm.
That's when I first started, and then I moved to Barra for like a few years, and then I came back.
Ah, I see.
So, I guess being out there kind of hindered my progress a little bit.
I mean, yeah, you could see it that way. I mean, that's kind of the reason why I don't play multiple servers or multiple MMOs, because it just feels like the time you spend on one could have been spent on the other. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, why didn't you do like a starting over from nothing series?" And I'm like, "Well, then I just lose progress on my current account."
Yeah.
But you gotta you gotta do like a cost benefit analysis of like, how do you want to spend your time?
Yeah. Luckily, I had a lot of money saved up before I switched over, so I didn't have to go back to nothing.
Yeah, that feels when I quit in 2012, 2012, and I came back in 2016, coming back to Barra with like I had like 2 bill, I think. That was before like all the mass inflation stuff started, so 2 bill was like a decent chunk of money when I left. When I came back, it's like basically nothing. And like 2012 gear in 2016, everything literally just being trash. That was like, yeah, do I really want to start over in this server? Or do I just... And then I was like, no, fuck this. And then I checked out Reboot, and then, rest is ancient history.
Reboot was really fun when it first came out. It was so simple.
Yeah. I like that it kind of stayed simple comparative to non-Reboot, though. Like the extra ways of having to upgrade everything and the protection scrolls and all of those things. Like, I'm glad we don't have to deal with any of that, because there's so many things to keep in mind.
Yeah, when I first switched over to Barra, I was so confused as to what any of the scrolls did.
Yeah, there's so much more than Reboot. I think even if I moved over, I would need like a month or 2 or 3 to like actually like get a grip on what is going on here. Yeah,
it's not worth it. I'd be trying to Star Force stuff, and then it was forcing me to scroll first, and I feel like I just want Star Force, dude.
Yeah, I just wanted Star Force, man. Like, yeah, you have to make sure that you have 0 upgrade slots available and everything. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, innocent scrolls, protection scrolls, yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, dude, I'll excuse me, I'll like throw it on YouTube, and we'll let the people in the comments section rip you to shreds, and then
all right,
you'll be up there. All right, good luck, dude.
All right, stay funky, stay spunky, and stay spicy.
All right, I'll stay spicy for you. See you, man.